Soup, soup, let's start the show.
Welcome to the Neverdaily podcast. It's another episode. It is a balmy 59 degrees in my studio.
Actually, sounds kind of nice and might wake me up.
Yeah. I honestly, I prefer cold over hot. I would much rather be in the studio in cold than hot.
I'm weird. I prefer to be cold. Like, I like keeping the AC on low, but also I hate walking outside into snow or anything cold. So I like when the inside's cold and the outside's warm. Is that weird?
No, I think that's probably pretty normal because you have some control over your indoor temperature, so you can set it to a preference. But also, you wouldn't set your house to 27 degrees,
Yeah.
so that's a thing.
Yeah, I'm a desert rat at heart. And I hate the snow. I don't like the snow at all.
I enjoy the snow. I think I'm learning something about myself. I enjoy weather that keeps people sedated.
Oh.
Like, growing up, I hated going to the mall and seeing, I'm like, put some clothes on during the summer. Like, stop it.
You were one of those kids. Most other teenage boys are like, take some more off. It's okay.
I think you're right. Like, I prefer a sweater over spaghetti straps. Like, I don't know. Just the way I'm wired, I guess.
I think, because I don't know if I've said this before, but I, really want to live in Hawaii, but not just because it's Hawaii, but because the weather's pretty much the same all year round. That's what I like about it.
It's steady, that's for sure. So it's a lot of some of California, a bit of California is that way too. There's, some steadiness to a certain pocket there. Nevada's sort of that way too, but it gets too hot, right?
Yeah.
This is really boring for a podcast. We're talking about the weather. How dumb.
I'm sure there's some 60-year-old people who are really enjoying this segment right now.
Yeah. Really demographically, we don't slant that way very severely. We have a couple.
I don't know if he's back.
I'm back.
I thought you were just playing
that was
really
annoying
mean joke on me.
My internet was being dumb. I found some funny things. I dug through the This Is True archives, and I found some funny things I thought I'd share. They're funny. They're funny, he says convincingly.
Well, I'll be the judge of that.
What are they going to do? Crucify him? That's the headline for this one. On April 1st, 2019, Wayne and Bonnie Anderson of The Villages, Florida, got a nice notice from their community development district, which said their yard decoration was in violation of the lawn ornament standards. The decoration, a white 12-inch Christian cross. Quote, I thought it was an April Fool's Day joke, Wayne said. We call it a religious icon. They call it yard art, like the same with pink flamingos. He refused to remove the cross, so the CDD levied a $25 fine per day. Once it hit $44,000, the case was in court. Village's CDD 8 sued. The Andersons' defense was pretty solid. There are around a dozen such crosses in other yards in the neighborhood. Quote, it's selective enforcement, he says.
Whoopsies.
And the judge ordered the parties to settle. Seeing the writing on the courtroom wall, the CDD agreed to pay $173,000 in court and legal fees.
Whoopsies.
Pay the Andersons $70,000 so they can pay off their own legal fees. And, quote, we get to display it as our constitutional and God-given right, Wayne said. Turns out the cross wasn't the CDD's burden to bear. Zing.
Ba-dunts.
Yeah,
Yes.
I will say that's one thing about home, what do you call those? HOAs?
Yeah.
Is they're relatively ironic in that, like, I've caught the HOA lady giving notices, and then I drive by her house and I'm like, oh, hey, look at that. I wonder if she gives herself the same notice for the same thing that she just gave the notice for to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty, not always accurate.
It's one of those things where, in theory, they sound nice, but it's always in practice. You know, like, in theory, socialism and communism sounds nice. Everyone's equal and everyone gets what they need and everyone always has what they, and everyone's treated the same and stuff. But practice never follows that.
Yeah.
with
Yeah. HOAs, the thing, I think that the Achilles heel of the HOA is you're relegated to the authority of those who want to be on an HOA.
Yeah.
And then in some cases, like I've had HOAs before where they'll send a letter out and they're like, please come to the next meeting. Please, we need more people to sign up to be on the HOA. Like, they can't get enough people because they, people are burned out on it.
One of my favorite internet stories is the guy who literally infiltrated his own HOA to dissolve it.
Ooh, that's fun.
He literally put on this whole campaign. He said it cost him like $4,000 to get to like throw this whole campaign together, and he becomes the HOA president, and he ran on the platform of dissolving the HOA.
And they took him on because
they literally voted for him in order to dissolve the HOA because everyone was having problems with like basically the same three Karens in the neighborhood, where they were. I mean, just like you were just saying, like there's a lot of selective enforcement happening. Which, guess what? If you're selectively enforcing stuff, the judge will never rule on your side.
Well, I'm torn because I think a homeowners association provides order.
It does.
And to think that we all neighbor the same way is delusional. We don't. And just I don't know. Like we had a baby and the baby slept in a bassinet next to the bed at one point, and before you know it, the baby has been in the bassinet next to the bed for too long, and we should have moved her into the room. Things grow hair if you just leave them be. And yards and people's houses can be that way. It's like you get a camper and you've got a spot at a storage unit, but one time you just get too lazy and you don't take it back to the storage unit, and then 9 months later you're like, or you have
that guy who's simultaneously working on 4 different project cars in his front yard.
Yeah.
And like it's never in the garage. And so there's just parts and there's like a transmission.
Yeah.
I knew a dude who literally used to have a transmission in his front yard for like 9-12 months, just growing weeds around it. And it was like, I knew him. He's like, well, I'm going to put it in my car eventually. I just don't have, like, it prevents people's houses from looking horrible, but there's always a cost to that.
Well, life happens, and especially in the neighborhood, and everybody gets to watch your life happen. Like we've got a guy in our neighborhood. It's one of the greatest blessings a neighborhood can have is this guy is like very good handyman and very good automotive, right? And he owns a muffler shop. Like he owns a series of muffler shops, and he lives in the neighborhood. And he posts on our neighborhood Facebook page, like, hey, you got a problem? Let me know. And I did so I had a problem, and my wife's like, well, remember that guy? He lives in the neighborhood. Message him, see what, and it's like, he's like, yeah, because I live near the elementary school. He's like, yeah, well, I'll just stop by after I pick my daughter up. And so I watch him. He walks by my house and he's like, hey, I'll be right back. Goes, picks his daughter up, comes back, climbs under my son's truck and beep, boop, 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 fixes it. I'm like, that was it? And he's like, yep. I'm like, what do I owe you? He's like, nothing. So it's good. But if that same guy constantly had a string of cars in front of his house and, the street turned into an oil slick, yeah, it's, so they have a purpose, but they attract a certain ilk.
Yeah. The people who run them. Yeah. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I guess the other side of that story in particular is, and it's, it's the way of the world. It's some people, there's a major ick factor when it comes to religion and religious objects and stuff. And some people are just, they'll double down, and they'll be like, I don't want it in my neighborhood. And
well, it's funny because we have a bunch of listeners in the back door who aren't from America, and HOAs are kind of a, not necessarily an American thing, but I think they happen here more. And it's just funny watching people like, what are you talking about? How is that a thing?
Over in the UK, one of my favorite, I'm kind of weird because there's certain things where I won't watch it because it's just fake. Like, it's like wrestling. I won't watch. Early on, I used to watch this guy. He was sort of like Dog the Bounty Hunter, but younger. And he's always Patty Mayo, and he's just like
before.
Completely kitted out SWAT team. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And at the beginning,
AF.
Yeah, I think it was real at the beginning. Like, he was just filming his body,
he had a body cam on, and I think he had a camera person.
And now it's like the people that he's arresting, it's staged. You can totally tell. Like, it's egregious. Like, he'll fight people, and like, I swear sometimes he starts it. It's like, come on. So there's certain things I can't watch because it's staged, and I'm just like, that's dumb. I'm not dumb. I'm not watching this. There's also a string of these ones now where somebody bought the inside of an airplane, and it's probably sitting in somebody's house, but they film like incidents on airplanes, and it's fake. They're fake, know.
You can tell, like, here's how I tell if it's a fake airline incident. Like, think of the last time you've been on an airplane. When you stand up in the seat, you're doing this because there's a luggage thing above your head, right? Yeah. But for some reason, some of these videos, everyone's standing straight up because it's a film set. Like, I think it's an old film set someone bought.
Yeah, it could be.
And it's because, like, the luggage storage always seems to be way taller, like, where people are standing up freely. Like, there seems to be way more room for people to move around. It's like, last time I've been on a couple planes, like, there ain't no room to be moving around like that.
Yeah.
Like, there's just not enough room. And then you don't hear the engine whine. Like, when you're on a plane, there's always noise. a background, like, the whole time.
And it'll go on for 8 minutes and no, like, flight attendants show up or anything. I'm like, nah, it's not real.
And there's
also,
like,
the windows are always shut.
Yeah. And I've seen a bunch of fake HOA stuff too. Like, people will film fake videos on their door cams. Yeah. Like, hi, I'm Steven from the HOA, and your grass is 0.00002 inches too tall right now. So or just even worse things. There's a bunch of AI videos now of HOA videos. Yeah. Where it's like HOA meetings. Sorry. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid.
Yeah. The one I was going to say, I'm on the fence because I'm not from there, so I don't know if this is a thing or not. I know that at one point, the equivalent of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission in the U.S., over in the U.K., you licensed access to TV and I believe radio too. So they'd drive down the street with these scanners and identify how many signals they detected from your house, and they'd come to your house and say, hey, you're paying for one TV but our scan is showing you have multiples.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a thing. I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't know how it could be because everybody's plugged into the internet now. Nobody's got an antenna.
So what I understand about it is it's the license is for watching live television. So
yeah, right.
If you even if you're watching YouTube, if it's live, you need that license.
Interesting.
If it's not live, you don't need the license. So you can stream stuff because it's not quote unquote live.
Yeah.
So like you can stream stuff all day, but if you were to watch a football game, and I'm talking about, footy, you have to have the license. If you're watching the news, you have to have the license. If you're watching someone live stream on YouTube, you have to have the license. So yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing.
Yeah. The door cam videos that I've been watching lately, and I'm trying to figure out whether or not they're real or not. There's a handful of them, but I don't know if it's like, are people really this dumb? It'll be a door cam video, and lady will ring the doorbell, and they're not going to come to the door. They're like, "Can I help you?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm your neighbor, and I just lost access to the internet. Did you change your Wi-Fi?" and they're like, "What does that have to do with you? I can change my Wi-Fi all day long if I want." And she's like, "Well, if you changed it, then give me the new password." And it's like, what's happening? People are weird. Anyway, again, probably dumb conversations for a podcast. I got another. This is true. Unsafe cracker. Is it about a white person? We'll find out. People were walking past as he was loading up his bike. It's so shocking, said Paul Paxton, manager of Copper Blossom Cocktail Bar in Edinburgh, Scotland. Is it Edinburgh or Edinburgh?
Edinburgh.
But it's B-U-R-G-H, but I think that they might say Edinburgh.
I've been yelled at a couple times. It's still bruh. It's a bruh sound. Edinburgh.
Okay. Edinburgh, Scotland. Security cameras show someone riding up on an e-bike wearing a hood and a mask just after the bar had closed. The person rips an 8-foot-tall, 28-pound Christmas nutcracker statue worth 900 pounds or $1,200 US off the railing, drags it onto his bike, and rides off with the decoration precariously balanced, all in front of multiple witnesses. The nutcracker was part of a pair, and its companion is now being kept indoors overnight. Police are investigating. If the thief is caught, a nutcracker could be put to good use. Ouch. Here's another one. Wrong kind of nature, not enough reserve. The St. Lucie County, Florida Sheriff's Office received multiple complaints of lewd and lascivious activity at the DJ Wilcox Preserve, a 105-acre nature area with walkways in Fort Pierce. Deputies were sent to investigate, and within minutes, they say, Claude Higgins, 82, exposed himself to an undercover detective and, quote, propositioned them for personal gratification. Higgins was arrested, charged with indecent exposure. Quote, shortly afterward, they continued, Dallas Freeman, 87, exposed himself to an undercover detective and also propositioned him for sexual activity. Freeman was arrested, charged with indecent exposure. The detective was gratified to be off duty before the suspect's ages got into the 90s. Dang.
Well, to quote Creed from The Office, he was just hanging brain, no big deal.
Oh, wow. Jeez. I've got two more for you, and then we'll move on. 6 children got off their school bus at their usual stop in Martisville, Alabama, but there was a train stopped between them and the parents who had parked nearby to collect them. So they went under it. I'm like, I know y'all ain't coming up from under that train, said Father Leon Estelle, who works in the railroad industry. And they were like, he told us to do it. So I'm like, who is he? And he popped up like in between, like I'm sorry. I told them go up under the train and everything. The instruction to go under the train, the children said, came from the conductor. Estelle said someone could have been killed if the train had moved, even if it were just slack roll and not even, for any reason. A text message attributed to the school district affirmed its commitment to safety and said it had put the bus driver on administrative leave. If there was a train blocking the driver's route home, the driver probably waited for it to leave before proceeding. Oh, my goodness. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah. I do find it's weird. There are certain things where I think in our society we just trust, like in a crazy amount. Like you trust that your doctor knows what they're talking about. You never ask, where were you on the grade scale for graduation?
Just remember, there are some doctors who barely pass their classes, literally by the skin of their teeth.
There are a lot of last place doctors, and that should worry us. I mean, there always has to be a last place, but just go and listen to the podcast series Dr. Death, and then you'll be like, oh, wow.
Just listen to what I bring later today in our story, and you'll be like, oh, wow. Doctors. Okay. Oh, they were doctors.
We'll get to that. I've got one more, and then I'm gonna not hand you my mic, and I'll let you grab your own mic.
Okay.
A driver heading to work near Lakeland, Florida, noticed a man walking down the road in the dark in 36 degree or 2.2 Celsius weather. The driver chose not to stop and check on the man, considering he wasn't wearing a stitch of clothing. He called the sheriff instead. Quote, he's not even wearing any socks. Sheriff Grady just posted it online. We asked him, are you cold? Not a bit. They asked him why he was doing that, and he claimed it's a TikTok challenge. A deputy thought he was A deputy thought that was an unlikely excuse. He didn't have his phone with him. The man gave a false name and address, but was identified as Anthony Day. So we addressed him for obvious violations of the law: disorderly conduct, resisting an officer without violence, and indecent exposure. Yeah, I guess if you're doing it, I wonder how often that's happening with these TikTok challenges. Like, people don't record it or anything. They're just like, I'm doing a TikTok challenge. They're like, why? But you're eating a Tide Pod and you're not recording it.
Yeah.
So it's not really a challenge.
Well, it's like my little brother and his friend once decided to film each other jumping off the roof of the house, and both jumped off the roof of the house, and neither of them turned the camera on. So the camera is turned on after the second person jumped off the house, and they're both just sitting on the ground, just like, that hurts so much, that hurts so much, that hurts so much. That's the only part they got of it. And that's the thing is, they actually did jump off the house. They didn't just pretend to jump off the house. They did it and never recorded it. So
yeah.
That was back in the day when Jackass was still like the biggest show on TV, and people.
It's funny. I was thinking about that the other night. I thought I'd check in on Fail Army, and watch some reels for a minute. And I remember clearly waking up. My wife would wake up because I was shaking the bed as I laughed next to her.
Yeah.
And I remember clearly, like, I couldn't watch an entire, little video of Fail Army fails without laughing or wincing several times in the video. And this was, this would have been back in the early 2000s, 2010s era. And now I can watch anything and not laugh or wince. It's funny because I literally have been desensitized. You
Yeah.
know, I've watched, if you've watched one Fail Army video, you've watched, I mean, there's still some I'll be like, oh, ow, you know, but yeah, we've become dead inside to the
Yeah.
fails.
That's usually what I'll do is because I used to watch Phil Army all the time. Now I have to space it out to get the same dopamine hit.
Yeah, you gotta give your body, your brain a rest. I remember back in the day, I don't know if they still do, that I had friends that they would submit videos to Fail Army, and Fail Army would pay for it.
I think they still do. Because that,
Pretty
that
decent.
channel's making money hand over fist. Like, they have so many,
Yeah.
like, 10 million view videos, and I think, like, they'll post a video, and within an hour or two, it has 500,000 views.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, they're making money hand over fist, and all they're doing is just stitching videos together that people are sending to them.
There's a channel, one of my favorite body cam channels is called Code Blue Cam. And they have millions of followers, but it's gotten to the point where all of their, like I would say 98% of their body cam videos all come out of Wisconsin. So they just are hammering the police departments in Wisconsin with FOIA requests and, getting all the videos.
I wonder if Wisconsin is just like, whoever's issuing the videos is just a chill dude who's just like, oh yeah, here you go.
Well,
here's another one. Here you go. Here's another one.
It's gained such momentum that you'll be watching one and someone will be like, hey, I just want you to leave me alone. And they're like, hey, sir, we need to talk. He's like, I'm not going to end up on Code Blue Cam, So like, it's popular enough that they know in Wisconsin, you could end up on Code Blue Cam. But there's a handful out there that are pretty intense. It's funny. Sometimes, you know how like girls say their periods sync up if they spend too much time together. It's happened twice where I'll have just watched a body cam video, or I'll be watching it and Luther will send me the link. I'm like, this is weird. It's crazy. So every once in a while Luther catches one that I'm like, yes, that was a gold nugget. But anyway, what hey Chase. Hey
Sorry, I'm writing a message to someone in the back door.
What did you bring today? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your typing.
No, I'm just trying to interact with the backdoor peeps too. Because someone brought up Live PD, and that's one of my favorite shows. And I was just telling him I saw Styx at CrimeCon one year. Like, he walked by the booth when we were sitting there, and that was the only time I like fangirled at CrimeCon. I just looked up, I was like, hi, Styx. I probably sounded just like that. And he just kind of looked at me and he just went, hey. And I was just like, he saw me. And I was like, I'm like, all right, it was worth it. I came out here, it was worth it. It was at the Florida one.
Oh, yeah.
And they walked right by our booth because he was on his way to present at the main stage. And like, he had like 12 people surrounding him. And yeah, I just was like, hi, Styx. And yeah, he saw me. He's seen my face before and acknowledged my existence. So
I think, having been to CrimeCon a handful of times, that whole thing is like funded by 4 big shows. I'm convinced. Yeah. And then to have a booth there, it is not cheap.
No,
thousands.
Like, I still have like my name tag, and it literally says Nancy Grace on the lanyard. So yeah, that show probably put a ton of money. That lady put a ton of money into that.
Yeah, that network is just pumping money into it, and their booth and everything is like huge.
Yeah,
it's
they
crazy.
Have one of those like moving parts booths where they set up things and there's motors and
they had like a jumbotron spinning above the the table. I was like, what the heck?
Multiple big screen TVs just playing clips of their shows and like it's like a whole like 18-wheeler setup is their booth. Like, they have so much stuff there. There's like chairs and tables and
they're overdone it. They've overdone it. And then I have a little battery powered generator under our table
that our neighbor is using to power her TV and DVD player for her brother who was like murdered, and it's still unsolved.
Yeah, so we loaned our little battery generator to our neighbor table, and then I sat there and signed sleeves.
Yeah.
From T-shirts. It was funny though. I don't know if you remember the one year where we were there and I had created these really cool, like oversized mouse pads with each podcast on it. So like a picture and then a description of the podcast, and we laid them all out on the table. And some of them got stolen.
Yeah, we went to lunch and then we come back and half of the pads, they left all of mine. The other ones were gone.
They left Almost Fiction
and Tethers. They're just
Tethers. Yeah, they got stolen though. It was sad too because we were going to sign them and give them to somebody.
Yep, whoever came to our booth, we were gonna pick one at random to just take the signed merch, but nope. Yeah. Someone stole them.
I think hopefully the best
they were
experience,
a fan, at least.
I think the best experience was when Bex was there helping manage the booth, and she had like actual interactive games for people to play and stuff. I was like, this is really smart. Mm-hmm. She flies she doubled down. She came to CrimeCon to hang out at our booth, and she like managed the whole thing. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. And she also, it was Florida. And so she came to Florida, and like for a week before CrimeCon, she went to surf class. She learned how to surf.
Well, she got her instructor's license for wakeboarding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she went and got got her official instructor's license so she could teach wakeboarding classes, because that's what she does.
Well, okay, so a lot of people don't know this. Bex is a listener, and Bex lives in a town on the border between Switzerland and France, and she's British. Yeah. So she's all over the place internationally. She's got all the culture. And she used to be sponsored by Burton Snowboards. And she sent me pictures of these sweet. She was like hucking herself off of a cliff, and
then she was sponsored, and then later she became a brand rep for like multiple different brands, and then she became like in charge of like, she was like some brands like marketing someone or other, and now she just is just a ski instructor in the Swiss Alps.
Right. She sent me a picture a little while ago. She's like, hey, here's me. Hey, I just ran into Glenn Plake, who's one of my favorite skiers of all time. He was always in the old Warren Miller films like Blizzard of Oz. He has a giant mohawk, lives over there. He's one of my heroes, skiing heroes growing up. And she's like, hey, Glenn says hi.
He says hi. I told him. You're just like, yay. Crazy he knows life. My name for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. So I brought a cool story today. It's about rabbits. If you like rabbits or hate rabbits, this story's probably for you. Yeah. So, this is another old-timey story. This is 1726. So we're talking about a time when people still thought you could catch diseases from bad air. And the height of medical technology was basically...
is this 2022?
Yes. And the height of medical technology was basically, let's put some leeches on it and see what happens. So that's kind of what doctors were doing at the time. So there's this woman named Mary Denyer, who would eventually be known as Mary Toft after her marriage. So Mary is 23 years old at this time, and it's also at this time in her life where everything goes down. So, Mary lives in Godalming, Surrey. That's a real place. I had to Google it a couple times. Godalming, Surrey, which, if you're not familiar with English geography, is basically a kind of small town where everybody knows everybody's business. And the most exciting thing is somebody's cows get loose or someone accidentally makes flatulence in church. Like, that's a big deal.
How do you spell the name of the town?
Godalming. Godalming.
Godalming.
Godalming, Surrey. So yeah, so God-dalming Surrey. Sounds like a curse you're making at someone, or like when you spill your beer. God-dalming. So Mary at this time married a man by the name of Joshua Toft, a journeyman clothier, which sounds fancy, but basically means he travels around making clothes for fancy people who can afford his rates. The couple, yeah,
I'm going to interject just because I can't let it go the whole story not knowing. Godalming, which sounds like goddamning,
yes.
a historic market town in Surrey, England, derives its name from Old English translating to the clan or people of Godhelm.
Oh, so it's
Okay.
the KKK.
Yes. Oh,
It's the clan.
yeah. Well,
Just kidding. We're not accusing the entire town of being in the clan. Just maybe one or two of them. But, so yeah, the journeyman clothier, Joshua Toft, he's married to Marianne. They have 3 kids together, and
okay.
one's named after her mother, Mary, and then they have Mary, Anne, and James. And these kids don't matter at all because they're not in the rest of the story at all. I'm sure they were wonderful people, though. So, now in 1726, Mary gets pregnant again, so this is supposed to be her 4th child, and here's where things start to get a little bit weird. So she's out working in the fields because that's what you did in the 1720s. You worked right up until the baby literally fell out, and Mary is doing the same until she starts having complications. So in early August, she starts passing what history delicately calls pieces of flesh, one of which was as big as an arm. So just think about that. She's passing these out of her lady parts. So, or as some people would say, vagina. And look, I'm no doctor, but I'm pretty sure that when things the size of your arm are coming out of places they shouldn't be coming out of, that's what I would call a medical emergency.
I like Marissa's comment in the background. Dang, what's she eating? Here's what I have to say about that is I don't know that it matters what she's eating because it shouldn't be coming out of there. Like,
yeah. In chunks of flesh.
Stop.
That's the word they used, flesh.
Okay.
So, remember, 1726. So the medical advice was probably something like, have you tried praying harder? Maybe check your bile. Other than that, we don't know. So September 27th rolls around, and Mary goes into full-on labor at this point. Her neighbor comes over to help because that's what you do in small towns. Childbirth is a community event. And she watches as Mary produces, and I cannot stress this enough. Wait, before I say it, what do you think comes out?
I'm going to go with rabbit because you said rabbits.
Close. Animal parts. So you were right. But it's not just rabbit parts that come out. And, babies should be coming out. She's pregnant and in labor. A baby should be coming out. But we get animal parts, and the neighbor's just like, well, this is normal. And she just takes the parts and shows them to Mary's mother-in-law, Anne Toft. So now, technically, Anne Toft is described in the records as a local midwife, even though she's not officially listed as one anywhere. But Anne, who had 12 kids of her own, including, her son, whose daughter, this is her son's wife, what we're talking about, Mary.
Okay.
So she's had this, Anne has had 12 kids, right? So she's got some experience in giving birth, I'd say. So she looks at the animal parts and she goes, I know this guy. We need to call him. So they call this guy named John Howard, who is a man midwife, which is exactly as it sounds. He's a dude who delivers babies. So he's not a doctor. He specializes in just delivering babies. And he's been doing it for 30 years. So he kind of knows his stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
And so he first hears about like animal parts coming out of a lady, and he's just in my language, he goes, "This is bullshit," which is probably a quote is from him. So then the next day, against his better judgment, he goes to check out this whole thing in person, and he looks at the flesh that was birthed. He looks at Mary Toft, and he sees everything, and he goes, "Yep, totally normal."
What?
Yeah. And this is where it gets really wild because it's not wild enough. Mary goes into labor again, right in front of the man midwife, conveniently, and she starts producing even more animal parts. So Howard, who probably went to midwife school thinking he'd be delivering human babies, is now staring at what a contemporary account describes as 3 legs of a cat of tabby color and 1 leg of a rabbit. The guts were as a cat's, and in them were 3 pieces of the backbone of an eel. An eel. There's pieces of an
What?
eel. So she actually produced eel spine out of her lady regions. So the account then goes on to explain that the cat's feet were not formed. Wait, I read that wrong. This is a quote. The cat's feet were formed in her, Mary's, imagination from a cat she was fond of that slept on her bed at night. So basically,
it's like reverse transubstantiation. She's thinking these things out of the ether into her womb.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they're saying. So the logical explanation for them was cat feet are coming out of Mary's kitty, and because she thought about her pet cat too hard while she was pregnant. So over the next few days, Mary keeps delivering rabbit parts for the next few days, rabbit parts and pieces, and John Howard, the man midwife, is apparently fully convinced at this point that it's all legitimate. So he starts telling his contemporaries, and the story starts spreading, and it travels fast in 1726. So November 4th, Henry Devenant, who's a member of King George's court, so the king, shows up to see what's happening, and he looks over what's going on, looks over the animal parts, and he's just like, nah, I'm out. And he heads back to London, apparently convinced that he has witnessed a medical miracle. He's like, no, it's all legit. So he goes back to the king's court and is like, yeah, this is legit. And so now Howard, the man midwife, baby guy, starts to get so confident because other doctors are like, yeah, this is legit. So he moves her to a place and even starts advertising it as like a show that he'll deliver rabbits in front of anyone out of Mary.
What?
Probably for a small fee. He's also writing letters to other doctors telling them about his discovery that he's made. And in one letter sent to Nathaniel St. Andre, who's about to become a major player in the story, he was also the Swiss surgeon to the royal household. So he's been like the head, he's literally like the Dr. Fauci of the time. So the letter he receives, part of it says, quote, since I wrote to you, I have taken or delivered the poor woman of 3 more rabbits, all 3 half-grown, one of them a dun rabbit. The last leapt 23 hours in the uterus before it died. End quote. So he's literally saying that the rabbits that spontaneously show up in her stomach, in her uterus, are also jumping around and you can feel them. And he said one jumped around for 23 hours before it came out in pieces. Like, literally, they're saying this rabbit's jumping around in her womb. What?
The weird part about all this is you got to imagine that the doctor was like, well, or she's like, I really need to, I need to go for a little bit. And they're like, okay, where are you going? I was like, I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm just going to go for a walk.
I'll be back in a second. Yeah, I'll be back in a second. So, like, we have the attention of the royal court, right? This is blowing up. Nathaniel St. Andre, the surgeon guy, he is like, he goes back, tells what he saw. He's kind of like on the fence. So the king's like, hey, you and this other dude named Samuel Molyneux, who's the secretary to the Prince of Wales, so he's like kind of like a big deal. He sends both of these guys back out and is like, hey, we need to figure out what's going on. So November 15th, the 2 men arrive, and within hours of their arrival, Mary delivers a rabbit's torso right in front of them. How convenient. So St. Andre, being a man of science, then decides to do some tests. He's going to do some sciencey tests. So he takes this rabbit torso that this lady birthed, he cuts the lung out, and he puts it in water to see if it will float. because apparently that's going to tell, if it floats, that means that the rabbit was really alive at some point inside of her body.
Oh, that's how they determine it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Yes, because science. And it does float. So he's like, oh, the rabbit was alive inside of you. But then St. Andre's like, I'm going to perform some other tests. So he performs a medical examination on Mary and concludes that the rabbits are being bred in her fallopian tubes. Doctors. So a royal surgeon examines a woman and decides that her fallopian tubes have become a rabbit breeding facility. So, science. Same day, the doctors are like out having a lunch break or something. Mary delivers another rabbit, well, at least part of one. So when the doctors get back, she's having violent contractions again, and St. Andre delivers a rabbit skin followed by a rabbit's head. So we're getting more of the pieces of the rabbit. Both men of science examine these new pieces and note that some of them look like cat parts, but whatever. Who cares? So the king is really fascinated about this. He's listening to, the stories coming back to him, and he's just like, this is kind of cool or weird or whatever. We have one of our subjects can actually give birth to rabbit parts. So then he sends another surgeon, Syracuse Ehlers, to investigate. So he sent in even more learned men there. Ehlers arrives on November 20th and immediately notices that Mary is showing no signs of pregnancy. Weird. Then he observes that she seems to be pressing her knees and thighs together all the time when she's walking around, quote, as if to prevent something from dropping down, end quote, which should have been a pretty obvious clue that maybe something was going on. Like when you're walking, like you're trying to hold something in all the time. So Ehlers also thinks that the manly midwife Howard, okay, he's back, the guy who's in charge of her.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, you're being a little like sus, bruh. Like he said it just like that. That was probably a quote. It's like, you're being super sus, bruh. And why won't you let me, a surgeon, help deliver these rabbit parts? And so Howard's like, well, you're not a man midwife like me, so I'm just looking out for my patient. Like, you're not a midwife, so you don't know about midwifery stuff. So the surgeon guy goes, you know what? I believe you. This is all real. But he was lying on purpose. So he tells everyone that he's like, I believe this story. And he's like, I'm going to go back to the king and tell him that I believe this story. Well, what he didn't tell people is that he'd actually stolen some of the specimens of the rabbits that were being birthed. And so when he goes to examine them more closely, like in private, he finds evidence that they'd been cut with man-made instruments.
Yeah.
Like, duh. And then he discovers pieces of straw and grain. Like, he opens up the rabbit torso, and there's like straw and grain
like
in the stomach.
Fed,
like it had been fed. Yeah. So unless Mary had like a barnyard on her insides, can't be possible. So he's like, hey, these rabbits had been on the outside and then placed on the inside, if you know what I mean. So this surgeon reports his findings to the king and several persons of note and distinction. This makes Howard and St. Andre, the two guys who have been working with her, nervous because they were all in on the rabbit story. And spoiler alert, St. Andre gets ordered back to go look at the lady 2 years later. And the king's like, did you really see what you thought you saw, bud? So St. Andre goes back. Howard tells him that Mary has given birth to 2 more rabbits while he's been gone. And she also delivered what he thinks is placenta, but Mary's now getting sick. And we don't know why. So next, in what can be described as a panic move, St. Andre starts collecting sworn statements from witnesses to try to cover his own ass. He's trying to get other people to be like, no, it's real. I saw it with my own eyes. This is all real. So then the king orders St. Andre to bring Mary to London for further investigation. And he's accompanied by Richard Manningham, who's a well-known obstetrician and also a knight. So Manningham examines Mary, and he finds her right side slightly enlarged, and then she delivers what this guy is like, I'm pretty sure this is a hog's bladder. Though St. Andre and Howard go, no, it's not. That's not a hog's bladder. That's immaculate. So, like, they're still trying to keep this ruse going, and it's falling apart. but by this point, the story is a national sensation, as it would. Rabbit stew even disappeared from dinner tables all over the country because people were too grossed out to eat rabbit after hearing about Mary Toft.
Yeah.
So, like, the sale of rabbits actually went down, and nobody wanted to eat, like, because rabbit back then was a major staple of people's diets.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And people are just like, nah, I don't know where this rabbit came from. So at the same time, London's medical elite are literally camping out where this lady is staying to try to get, to observe her. And under St. Andre's strict control, Mary gets examined by all sorts of eminent physicians from around the country, including John Mowbray, who had written something called The Female Physician. This dude's crazy too, where he proposed that women could give birth to creatures he called suitorkins. So he's like, oh yeah, ladies can produce all sorts of stuff out of their downstairs region, not just people. They don't just give birth to babies. So this guy, and he even wrote a whole book about it. So before you think, like, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about, he's a quack, because he also believes in something called maternal impression, which is basically what you said, where if a mom thinks about something too much, that's what it will completely influence her pregnancy. Which some people are like, I can see how the mother's emotions might affect the being, like might affect her pregnancy, like, how her emotional state can affect that kind of stuff, hormones and stuff. But that's not what he was meaning. He was meaning that, like, if you sat too close to your dog while you were pregnant, then your kid's going to look more like your dog.
Oh.
Like that's, or your cat, or they're going to pick up traits that either dogs or cats have if you're too close to your animals during pregnancy. So yeah, that's not a thing. So this dude really has a thing about pregnancies and animals. But finally, a voice of reason to add to the first guy who was like, this is bullcrap. James Douglas, he is one of the country's most respected anatomists, says the whole thing is a hoax. And he's like, hey, I'm not going to hang out with anybody who says this isn't a hoax because this is all bullcrap. He even went on record and said that a woman giving birth to rabbits was about as likely as a rabbit giving birth to a human child. Seems like pretty sound logic to me.
I'll bet you back then you could find a doctor who would say, no, that happens too. I wrote a whole book on it.
Yeah, I wrote a book on it. You should buy it. So now, like, this has only been a couple months, like, this is a month after she gets, relocated to be examined more, in London. Thomas Onslow, who is another guy who's been conducting his own investigation, discovers that for the past month, this dude's kind of like a private investigator. Like, it's kind of like the original, like, news journalist, but he wasn't a news journalist, like an investigative reporter type guy.
Right.
He's like the OG. So he's been following stuff, asking questions, and he finds that Joshua, Mary's husband, has been buying young rabbits at a very high rate.
Yeah.
Weird.
It took that to okay.
So the same day, Thomas, another guy named Thomas, this isn't Thomas Onslow, this is Thomas Howard. He's a porter at the place where they were keeping Mary. He confesses to a justice of the peace that Mary's sister-in-law, Margaret, had bribed him to sneak rabbits into Mary's chamber. So he's like, yeah, I was taking rabbits in. I was sneaking them in so that they could, do stuff with them and, continue the farce. So then Mary's arrested because, people are starting to come forward. So James Douglas, he's the anatomist. He questions Mary for several hours on multiple occasions. Finally, on December 7th, she confesses to the whole thing. So, after having a real miscarriage, she did have a miscarriage, while her, and I'm quoting, quote,
she had a real baby.
She had so she was pregnant at
but
first.
A miscarriage.
She had a miscarriage. Okay.
Yeah.
And so someone was like, I got to find a way to make money off of this. So her cervix was still accessible. That's a quote, right? So she had the miscarriage, so she was stretched out. So that's when they had then put in the body parts. Right after her miscarriage, like literally, right after her miscarriage, including a rabbit's head. They literally put it all the way up into her womb. and then she pushed it out. The births, the later ones, were just inserted into her lady parts. So that's why there's later, it's mostly limbs, like long, skinny things. Yeah, for lack of a better term. So Mary makes additional confessions on December 8th and 9th, just telling about how they did it, what they did. And in her confessions, she blames everyone but herself. You know, the total, like, this wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
So she gets actually charged. Her charges are a vile cheat and imposter. Those are her official charges when she's arrested. So she's found, like, what do you think they found her? Guilty or not guilty on this one?
Guilty? I'm going to go with guilty.
She is found, actually, she's not even charged. That was a trick question. Because there isn't even a trial, because apparently going to jail for being vile and an imposter is not a thing.
Oh. Weird.
So she's released. The medical profession, however, caught some strays, deservedly. They became the target of a massive public mockery, as they should have been. Prints satirizing the whole affair went out, showing Mary surrounded by various doctors, and they were labeled so people knew who they were. So, like, there's prints going out. They're being talked about in everything. Publications mocked the gullibility of modern physicians, and several doctors who weren't even involved felt compelled to publish statements saying they never believed in the story in the first place. So, like, that's how bad, like, everyone looked at doctors. Like, actual doctors, like, hey, it wasn't me. So they're literally printing out things, like little leaflets saying, I didn't believe it, and handing it out. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So St. Andre's reputation is permanently destroyed, despite the fact that he'd published a 40-page pamphlet defending Mary's case 4 days before she confessed that it was garbage. So he literally wrote this 40-page document on detailing the case, only to then have her just like, yeah, it's all bullcrap. So the one guy who pretended to agree, the original guy who started, blowing the whistle, Ehlers, his skepticism was vindicated, and he published his own account of events that was probably a little bit more accurate as to what happened. So Mary Toft later moves back to where she was from, to Godalming, and she gives birth to an actual daughter in February of 1728. And noted in the parish register, this is an official note at the place where she gave birth. It says, quote, first child after her pretended rabbit breeding. So, and that's the story of how a 23-year-old woman from a small English town convinced the royal court and the country's leading medical experts that she could give birth to rabbit parts.
I think sometimes, like, the delusion runs so deep that there is like a kind of a contagious effect to the delusion, right? Mm-hmm. I've actually, sometimes I'll create cases in my brain where I'm put on trial for like dumb things. And like one of the most consistent in my brain is, as you know, because you background checked into to finding where I live and everything, because I had sent a photo.
That was just
like,
a photo.
I don't know. Yeah, a photo of like something. My house backs up to, it's across a main street in front of a elementary school, right? Mm-hmm. My house and like 30 other houses are on the street, right? But from the back windows, we all can see across the street to this elementary school. From a resale standpoint, the house is valuable because of its proximity to an elementary school. It always increases value, right? Uh-huh. From a privacy standpoint, it's always kind of freaked me out because we have an entire set of bedroom windows that back to the elementary school. And I'm talking, there's a football field distance between my back windows and like where the kids enter the school. So it's not like, I'm right on top of them or anything.
But you have been handing out like binoculars to the kids at
Right.
school, which is
Yeah.
kind of weird, but you know.
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there. No, but it's like I have a backyard and then an entire main street and then a parking lot and then the front doors.
And
Anyway,
fences, yeah, and lots of
yeah.
stuff.
But I've thought about this before, where like there can be, and the news is full of it, of stuff where like ridiculousness wins, right?
Mhm.
And one thought I've had is because there's been many a morning where I wake up and I sit on the side of my bed and I just kind of stare aimlessly out the window, right? And the thought has crossed my mind, somebody out there could be looking at me and be like, is that dude like in his pajamas? That's creepy. There's a school right here. And I've thought about it like a super Karen snapping pictures of, this is all fake, but super Karen snapping pictures of me in my window.
Yeah.
Staring out the window. And she's like, look at this creep. It's right across from a school. And everything she's saying is true. But in a headline, it seems like, that's the way news works anymore. They're like, creepy man stares in his pajamas out window at a school across the street, right? And I've thought about how maddening that kind of thing is, because like what they're saying is true, but everybody is skipping the initial crime of voyeurism. Like everyone's jumping over how this came about anyway.
Yeah.
And they're like, and I thought they'd have to shutter like 30 houses to make this not possible, but we live in that, like, I think it just goes to show it doesn't matter what era or what century you're in. Craziness dominates.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts.
The squeaky, what do they say? The squeaky wheel always gets the oil, right?
Yeah.
It always gets the attention. That's like,
yeah.
There's one time. So my house, all the bathrooms, like all the showers, like we have 2 bathrooms, but they're both on the top floor. So I live in a townhome, and so yeah, like there's 2 bathrooms upstairs and 2 bedrooms. And I walked out of the bathroom one time, and I'm on the 2nd floor. I have my blinds open, my windows open, and I just walk out just butt naked after a shower. And the church, like a half a block away, was getting the roof redone. And there's like 6 dudes ripping the roof off of the church when I just walk. And like these are big, like we have big windows. So I just open the door from the bathroom, walk into the room, and all of a sudden I'm just bare ass naked. And there's like 6 dudes. I just look out the window to see like roof. 6 dudes on the roof just like hucking shingles off. And I was just like, don't look. And I like ran up and pulled the blinds shut. But yeah, like I was just like, oh, I thought I was safe. I wasn't safe.
Yeah.
So sorry to those 6 men. I apologize for what you probably saw that day.
It's funny, like there's a lot we could talk about right now politically happening where like ridiculousness seems to reign. The headline reads a certain way and everybody's like, oh yeah, whether you're for or against ICE or whatever it is, right? But then a little bit of time passes and suddenly everybody's eyes open and they're like, yeah, that was
stupid.
That was we were dumb.
I'm going to ask you one question. Where did Fauci go?
That's a good, right? Like,
have you ever heard of that? Have you heard of that dude? All of a sudden, all the stuff comes out where it's like the vaccines were bullshit. Like they're causing problems, and these are legit. Like you can Google. Like this isn't right-wing conspiracy shit
anymore.
This is verifiable medical. Like this is legit. The vaccines like effed over a lot of people.
Yeah,
they didn't work the way they were supposed to at all. And then
preliminary
you have
studies were 0.
Yeah, do you wear these masks? Oh wait, the particle that is too small to be filtered by any mask, except for a certain like very high end mask. So now you're just like, oh, all this was bullshit. And then all of a sudden, the guy who's pushing it the hardest, Dr. Fauci, is freaking gone. After he made millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, and then he disappeared.
So here's an interesting thing about Fauci. And again, this is history. And once we forget history, we're bound to repeat it. And I'd love to say that this is the first time that Fauci showed up in history and he screwed over and killed a whole lot of people and then disappeared. But all you have to do is go back to the late 80s, early 90s. You'll find whole protests of people in the streets with giant signs saying that Fauci should be jailed.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did it again in the late 80s, early 90s with regards to, I believe it was AIDS and certain things with regard to AIDS. And it caused mass outrage.
Yeah.
But we all forget about it. We forgot about it. And suddenly, boop, he's back. It's weird. My whole, you don't really believe what you're mad about reigns true to this day. For example, did you know that, and I'm going to talk about immigration for a second, but did you know that when Obama was president, his head of ICE deported more than has currently been deported in the Trump administration? That's important. But part two of that is the head of ICE received a commendation and a medal from the president, and there's full-on photos and video of him receiving the whole stand there, and the president puts the medal on you and stuff, right? He got the medal for deporting people. Oh, by the way, that was Tom Homan.
Yeah.
The same guy that is currently deporting less than what Obama deported. Like, it just goes to show that like we can be led around the nose nose by media and the impressions. It's same.
Yeah.
But it depends on how we're interested in looking at it, right? And I think about things like somebody taking pictures of me in my window a lot, because it's like, we don't live in a time anymore where I could go, oh, no, shut this whole thing down. That's voyeurism. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, you're right. Never mind. It wouldn't matter. Like, I could be like, this is voyeurism. What are we doing here? And they'd be like, well, but school plus your back windows plus you in the window equals creepy. And I'm like, no, the photo was voyeurism. That's what kicked this all off. And that's a crime. Let's start there. And they're like, no, because feelings equal you photo and plus the school equals me creeped out by your pajamas. Yeah. We live in a weird time. But again, this time is no different than like the 1400s. When the same thing.
It's like a couple of years ago when there was a kid, two teenagers in love, right? You had a 17-year-old, and I think his girlfriend was like 15, which like that's like normal. Like, how old in high school? A 17-year-old and a 15-year-old.
Sure, yeah.
Like that's pretty normal in high school, right? That's like a junior. I mean, that can literally be a junior and a sophomore going out together. Yeah. Like you have a little bit older junior and a little bit younger sophomore. You know what I mean? Like, it's 1 or 2 years. That's not even a freshman dating a senior kind of a thing. So he and her sent, some spicy photos to each other, and her parents found out. And so then they get this kid. He's 17, remember? They have him arrested.
Yeah.
For sending. So basically what they were saying is that he was sending child pornography to their daughter. It was pictures of himself. He's a child. He's 17 years old.
So it's true. It's true on paper.
So they're like, he's sending child pornography to our daughter. That's illegal. And they're like, well, it's pictures of himself and he's a child. Yeah. And they're like, but we want him charged as an adult.
Right.
And they're like,
happens,
wait, what?
Probably.
And they're like, you can't. So if you're charging him as an adult, like, but you're saying that he's a minor in the pictures. But you're charging him as like, that doesn't make any sense. Or he can't be an adult and a minor at the same time.
Or their lawyer, the prosecution's lawyer, the prosecution's lawyer would be like, just hold on. He's in jail. Hold on. Kid turns 18 soon. Just give it a minute. Oh, well, let's stretch this out. We're going to do some discovery. We're going to stretch this out. And then I'm going to let the local news know He's 18, and like that's,
Yeah.
I'd love to say that that's fresh and new, but history shows us that the moment printing presses showed up, misinformation and disinformation started. The moment you could buy a printing press, presidential elections were screwed. And that happened in election number 2 in the United States. Like, George Washington was a shoo-in, right? It was like not a thing. Like everybody's like, yeah, it's George. Let's go. After that first election, politicians were like, well, I'm just going to buy that newspaper shop is now mine. And it was over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we are not smart.
Like, here's the proof in the pudding that like the majority of these quote unquote protests are bullshit. Is that why doesn't anyone care about Palestine anymore? That was like a huge thing.
We fixed it. That's why.
I would drive around and and it's not fixed. That's the problem. It's just like, well, we couldn't do anything, so now let's just find the new thing to complain about. And then nobody cares about, like, pretty soon nobody will care about immigrants anymore. Just give it a couple 8 months. Nothing will have changed, but nobody will care. There'll be the new thing, the new sign to carry around and make people feel bad about.
You don't care. You don't really care about what you think you're caring about because someone can show you that your ilk did the same and you were okay with it and you want to just change the subject. And we've been doing that since COVID. Mm-hmm. It's like, no. Hey, you're still stuck on COVID? Oh, come on. Now, what about the people in Palestine? It's like, okay, what about Palestine? Wait, you're stuck on Palestine? Look, it's over. It's over. Something weird happened in 2012 and everything's been kind of weird since then. But anyway, enough of that. I thought I was bringing the heat today with the gore. I think you might have beat me with the rabbit parts in fallopian tubes. But I'm gonna make a go of it.
Wait, what? So what meal is that? So when you call it a turducken, it's because you have a turkey or whatever and a duck, and there's inside of each other.
Yeah.
So what's it called when it's fallopian tubes and a rabbit? What's that meal called?
It's called. It's called. I can't say. Say. I might have a political career in the future, and I can't say otherwise.
That's when you should have just moved your mouth and pressed the beep button. Beep.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
It's called a bits.
Anyway,
right.
Sorry I derailed you.
The title of my series of cases that I'm bringing today is called Human Skin. And I really thought I was going to win today as far as the level of depravity, but you might have beat me, but I'm going to power through. So here we go. Human skin. This is these are situations where human skin was used not as just human skin, being human skin, keeping us alive, being the largest organ on our bodies, doing what human skin should be doing. These are all use cases for human skin that should have never come around.
Like
first we have
sense.
Yeah, and the like.
Okay.
So first we have Antoine LeBlanc. He was executed in 1833 in New Jersey after he was convicted of murdering a Morristown family, an entire family. Local authorities delivered his corpse to a surgeon for dissection. And in an act of communal revenge, LeBlanc's skin was tanned at a local tannery and made into morbid keepsakes, including at least one wallet pocketbook authenticated by the sheriff as made of his skin. So this was a way for the outraged community to literally own the killer's hide after his public hanging. So they divvied up his skin and made objects that they ended up using in everyday life. Like it would become your everyday carry. You know, you're like, oh no, yeah, this is a nipple purse. It's
this is from Samantha.
yeah. So the whole town was like, let's kill him. We'll tan him, quarter him up, and then, you know, who's a good leathersmith in town? We'll just give them a whole month of nightmare objects to make. So the next one, this one is baller. Like I feel like there could be a whole movie around this guy. His name's George Big Nose Parrott. He was executed in 1881 in Wyoming. A notoriously wild outlaw. He was known as Big Nose George. Wonder why. It's either he had a big nose or he had a tiny nose, because irony ran deep all the time. He was lynched by a vigilante mob for murdering 2 lawmen, and afterward, 2 doctors claimed his remains, and they flayed his skin. They sent patches to a tannery. The doctors commissioned a pair of leather shoes, as well as a medical bag and a coin purse.
The coin purse.
Yeah.
I wonder what the coin purse was.
Yeah.
I'll just say that in Australia, you can buy coin purses made out of kangaroo nut sacks.
Yeah.
I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, my buddy had one.
They're so soft.
Yeah, he went on a mission to New Zealand, and oddly enough, he went to New Zealand, but went to a Mandarin Chinese speaking mission in New Zealand. But yeah, he had one. He had one of those
There was a
purses.
kid in the MTC with me who was from Australia, going to Indonesia, but he had actually hunted it himself too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he had actually cut it off, and then him and his dad were the ones who turned it into a coin pouch.
Yeah. Actually, I used to own I was the marketing angle of a hunting gear company. And one year at SHOT Show, there was a booth, and it was all just like elk nut bags and, moose ball bags. It's a thing. It's leather, regardless of where it comes from. So in this case with Big Nose George, one of the doctors wore the human skin shoes to his inauguration as Wyoming's governor. So he wore the shoes to his own inauguration years later, symbolically trampling the outlaws' legacy. And these are actually museum artifacts now. You can find these in Rawlins, Wyoming. If you're in the area and want to stop by the museum there, you can see the shoes. The shoemaker was instructed to keep the nipples intact on the portion of the objects so that they could be proven as part of his skin. All right. Next, we have James Allen. He died in 1837. James Allen, alias George Walton, was a highway robber whose deathbed request turned his own skin into a message. After he died in prison, Allen's autobiographical confession was published, and he insisted one copy be bound in his own skin as a gift for the man who had bravely resisted his robbery.
Nice.
Like, this is a dude who's just like at a bank and he's just doing bank stuff. And he's like, no, you're not taking my money. And then, surprise, a little while later, you get a book, and the resulting book, bound in Allen's flesh, was delivered to his intended recipient and is now preserved at the Boston Athenaeum.
Yep, I heard that one. Guys, I think I saw like a little YouTube clip on it, but yeah, you can go see it. You can't go see it. It's in a certain storage, but you can see pictures of it on the internet.
Yeah. So this is one of those kind of cases where, sometimes criminals have like weird levels of like rules and codes. And this was his way of showing ultimate respect for the guy, for the guy who, resisted crime. It reminds me of when I used to wander around downtown Denver, and I was in the art institute, so I'd do sketches. I'd be just downtown doing sketching.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened all the time. It was weird. Like, I don't know if I just look like I should be smoking pot or what, but people would come up all the time and they'd be like, "Hey, do you have a light?" I'm like, "No." Or like, they're like, "Hey, do you have any weed?" I'm like, "No." And
No.
what was so funny is it reminds me of this guy where he's like, "You know what? I should send a book to this guy for resisting my advances in criminality," because happened so often. People would be like, "Do you have any weed?" I'd be like, "No, I don't smoke." And they'd be like, all right, good job." Like, compliment me for not smoking. It was weird. But again, codes.
It reminds me of the Ron Swanson episode where he has like the secret code in his wallet, like, and he's telling people like it's his will or whatever if he goes away, and they're like, "What does it even say?" And he's like, "The man who kills me will know."
Oh,
Like, it just seems like in that kind of
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
thread, you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, this man, he wouldn't let me just do whatever I wanted with him, so I want him to have a piece of me forever.
Yeah. It was like,
It's a respect thing.
I wonder if any of those people who, complimented me so heavily for not smoking, like, went home and they're like, "Guess what? I met someone who's never smoked pot today. It's crazy." It's like, I made an impression.
You did.
Okay, so here's the next one. Old Blockley Almshouse Case, 1869, Philadelphia. In a macabre medical oddity, the skin of Mary Lynch, a poor hospital patient who died of tuberculosis, was used by Dr. John Stockton Huff to rebind 3 anatomy textbooks. Huff secretly removed skin from Lynch's thigh during her autopsy, tanned it in the hospital basement, and used it to cover the books on human reproduction. This was not done out of malice or justice, but perhaps as a grisly tribute to medical science, or maybe just curiosity.
Or maybe he's just a frickin' weirdo.
Yeah. I mean, doctors in the 19th century, they really, well, I'd say in any century, but definitely the 19th century, because cadavers were hard to come by. Discovery in anatomy was still in its infancy. They saw human remains as like raw material oftentimes. You can see these now if you're ever in the Philadelphia, the Mutter Museum, which I highly recommend, is, I haven't been there, but I've read about Dr. Mutter, and Mutter is the OG in plastic surgery. Before him, we had a lot of ladies. Very common thing back then, I've probably mentioned it before, was everybody wore these just massive layers in their dresses, right? There was bodices and then a layer on top of that, and then a hoop skirt, and then a dress. All of it was natural materials, naturally, because we didn't have synthetic materials. Also, candles everywhere. And so what had happened is their dress would start on fire, and it would flame upward, right? The only thing that was exposed was their neck and head. And so all of the flames would just cook their face and stuff. And if they survived, they'd end up having this terrible situation where their neck melts, but then tightens, and it pulls the whole face down.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Mutter came up with the first. He was ridiculed for trying to do it, but he ended up succeeding. He had this flap process, which was the original. It was plastic surgery. It was the original plastic surgery. And everybody thought he was crazy, but he ended up, helping scores of women with their problems. It's crazy. So you can see those books. Also, I was thinking about that, though. So he bound 3 books with
this lady's thighs.
This
thick.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a thick set. All right. John Horwood, he was executed in 1821 in England at Bristol's New Gaol. 18-year-old Horwood was hanged for murder. What followed turned him into a cautionary tale. After execution, a surgeon dissected Horwood's body and then used Horwood's tanned skin to bind another book containing the story of his trial and crime. So it was a skin-bound trial transcript. Horwood's name and hanging date inscribed, was kept in the local museum for years as a morbid piece of hometown criminal history. In a twist, modern researchers later questioned Horwood's guilt. Oops, making the fate of his skin even more haunting. So we're not even sure he was guilty. Then we got William Corder. He was executed in 1828, England again. Corder's crime, the infamous Red Barn murder, shocked Victorian England, and even his skin became part of the legend. He was convicted of killing his lover, Maria Martin, and after his public hanging and dissection, a local surgeon named George Creed took some of Corder's skin. Creed used it to bind a book about his trial, too. So this is another skin-bound account of the actual Red Barn murder. It was displayed in Suffolk as a grim artifact. In fact, one copy bound in Corder's skin was actually rediscovered in 2023 on a museum shelf, and that sparked debate over whether such an object should be exhibited at all. That'd be kind of weird. You're just rifling through the Dewey Decimal System, and suddenly you're like, is that a rectum? What's going on? Let's see. Here's another one. Small notebook. This guy's skin was tanned and used to cover a small notebook.
Okay. He was not thick.
Yeah, so a slight man, or had small parts. William Burke, 1829, Scotland. Burke, one half of the notorious Burke and Hare murder duo. He received a taste of his own medicine after he was hanged in Edinburgh. As punishment for murdering 16 victims and selling the bodies for dissection, Burke's corpse was itself dissected publicly. A section of his skin was then tanned and used to cover a small notebook or calling card case. The cover even bears the gold-printed title Burke's Skin Pocketbook, lest anyone forget its origin. The gruesome keepsake, effectively Burke's skin turned into leather, still exists on display at Surgeons' Hall Museum in Edinburgh, symbolizing society's retribution against a murderer who treated others as commodities. And then we have one more bound book.
Mm-hmm.
George Cudmore, executed in 1830. Cudmore was a wife poisoner whose punishment extended beyond the grave. He was hanged for murdering his wife, and pursuant to his sentence, his body was dissected by anatomists in a bizarre epilogue. Part of Cudmore's skin was flayed and tanned, then used years later to bind an 1852 edition of The Poetical Works of John Milton. This Milton volume, bound in the murderer's skin, was essentially an object lesson, a literal binding of sin and justice. The choice of Milton's work in particular, which includes themes of Paradise Lost, adds an ironic flourish to Cudmore's post-mortem fate. So that's interesting. Let's see. Let me see if I can find any more. Here's one. This one ended up in the hands of a woman, a lady. Nat Turner was an enslaved preacher who led a famous slave rebellion in Virginia in 1832, in which dozens of whites were killed. You ever heard about this? This is a very interesting case. Nat Turner was very influential and put together a whole mob to kill a bunch of white people, slavers, people in town. And it was interesting when you read about it. you'd think that it wouldn't be that hard. Like, he's like, hey, we're going to get justice. We're going to go kill a bunch of these slaveholders.
Yeah.
And so he had a certain percentage of his mob that was like, yeah, I'm with you. But then he did an interesting thing too. He pressured people who didn't want to help or were on the fence with violence. He was like, this isn't going to go well for you if you're against this. So come along. And so his mob was like comprised of like these people that were 100% behind him, and then these people that were there like out of duress.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, if I'm not here, I'm going to get hurt worse than if I am here.
Yeah, it was very much a case of, if you're not with us, you're against us. And so they revolted, and it's kind of a warm and fuzzy justice, you know, when you read about it, you know, but it also kind of turns your stomach one way. It's kind of interesting. But after the revolt was suppressed, Turner was tried and executed by hanging. After his death, Turner's body was dissected and flayed by local medical examiners. His skin was then used to make souvenir coin purses, for white residents.
Yikes.
Other
Not a
accounts
good look
say
there.
they say his body fat was also rendered into soap and bones turned into tools, although the purses are the most documented. The detail that Turner's skin was used to make souvenir purses is confirmed by historical records. Yeah, it's it feels like that could be a Quentin Tarantino movie, you know, where you're like cheering for the rioter or the rioters, you know. You're like, it feels like another Inglourious Bastards kind of movie, you know, where you're all in. Let's see. John Mankins flayed alive. That's a twist. John Mankins was an Arkansas frontiersman whose reckless hate led to a horrific end in 1853 while traveling west on a wagon train. Mankins wantonly shot and killed a Native American woman for sport. Fearing retribution, his fellow settlers handed Mankins over to a band of enraged Plains Indian warriors to save themselves. The revenge exacted was a brutal act on the frontier, and it stuck around. The warriors stripped Mankins naked and lashed him to a wagon wheel, then meticulously flayed him alive, peeling off his skin in one continuous sheet as expertly as if skinning a deer. Mankins died an agonizing death, and the war party took the entirety of his skin with them when they departed, presumably as a trophy or proof of vengeance. What they ultimately did with the tanned hide of Mankins is lost to history, but the implication is that it could have been displayed or preserved as a warning.
Kind of like when the Vikings would do the blood eagle. It was always a warning, like, hey, this is what we'll do to you next if you don't do what we want or leave us alone.
Yep. Yeah. The cartels today, they'll still do this kind of thing. They'll flay somebody alive and they don't die. Your skin is remarkably unnecessary. And
as long
blood
as you
loss
don't get any of the because that's where you learn about the different levels like of bleeding.
Yeah.
And the different sizes of blood vessels and veins in your body.
Yeah.
And it's like all the little tiny ones are in your skin.
Yeah, capillaries don't really matter. And if you get rid of the skin, the body actually is like, oh, there's less, I can pump blood other places.
Yeah.
Also, like the you know, we all thought it was sort of sci-fi or fiction where, you know, on Indiana Jones, when he reaches in and grabs a beating heart, they do it.
Yeah.
They'll do it. They'll just lay a guy down and cut him open and reach in there and pull it out. Heart still beating. Guy's still awake, you know. It's crazy. It's a crazy world. Anyway,
Oh God.
that's my tale for today. I thought I'd wrap you in human skin for a little bit.
We just brought the tale uplifting, and now everyone's gonna leave here feeling positive and uplifted and
be
just
grateful
feeling
your
really
skin's
good.
still on your body, and if you see a rabbit, give it a fist bump.
Yeah, because also you might want to try speaking English to it because it might be half human. You never know.
Yeah. If you come across someone who's birthing parts that aren't human, probably don't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's going to be a struggle to not believe the headlines you read on everything else, but you can bank on that one, right?
Yep.
You can bank on it.
That is now knowledge you will carry with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's also kind of creepy to think about, it's illegal to have Nazi memorabilia, isn't it? Is it illegal?
No.
It's not illegal.
No.
It's frowned upon.
You can buy it on eBay, so I don't think it's
you?
illegal. Let's Google it.
I kind of feel like sitting in the attic of a couple antebellum homes in the South, there are moments.
So legal in the U.S., heavily restricted in many other countries.
Okay.
Especially in Europe.
Yeah.
Most of the bans, though, apply to public display or sale.
It'd be hard to get it if you can't buy it.
It says exceptions exist for education, historical context, or anti-Nazi messages.
So as long
as
long as your message is anti-Nazi, you could buy it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But part of the problem is like the swastika is illegal to like show in Germany, unless it's for educational purposes.
I could understand that swastika. We can argue as much as we want that the symbol itself predates Nazis. Even like the year before Nazis took it on, I mentioned it, right? It was like, it was a sign of peace and strength, and it's been used all over the place. But I get that. I can stand behind that. And
Google is saying that most of the restrictions revolve around quote unquote hate speech laws in countries.
Okay.
So even the symbols are seen as hate speech. But it's not in America, the First Amendment, that's how, so it just says that it's in America is usually protected as free speech to display, own, or wear those things.
Yeah. I was just going to say, there probably are a couple homes in the South where on some quiet evening, someone's like, Randy, have I showed you the purse? Billy's like, what are you talking about? It's like, hold on. How many beers have you had? I need to make sure you're not going to remember this. He goes and gets that Nat Turner purse down.
Yeah.
He's like, this was my great grandma's. This is made out of Nat Turner's skin. I can just see that. Like, there's a couple of those still sticking
just
around.
Floating around, yeah.
In
someone's little cigar box under their bed.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it was an interesting thing because grown up in the West, like abject outward racism isn't like, especially in the 80s and 90s, it's commonly said. Everybody got along.
Yeah.
We didn't have politicians telling us that we should be divided by race, and it wasn't an idea that was imbued. Racism still existed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as a people, we didn't have media and politicians telling us that we should pick a side,
which is scientifically proven. Like, they've proven it that like words have been like the use of certain words went up like 10,000%.
2012. Yeah, hockey stick on a bunch of different terms in 2012, around 2012. Racism, LGBTQ, a lot of terms. There are massive spikes starting in 2012.
And it started. That's where you can like trace the dividing right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's what, I mean, let's just remember Art of War. What is it? Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Divide is always the first word. Then
Well,
you conquer.
And nobody ever wants to be identified as a useful idiot.
Yeah.
But it usually comes about after the atrocity, and you get to identify who were the useful idiots in the thing. That's why I like looking at the history of Mao, because I believe it's a complete beginning and end tale of how humans can be manipulated. And it's crazy to watch how Mao did it. And he's like, I know what I'll do. I'll use college kids.
Yep.
They think they're so smart. They have no real world experience, but
Nope.
they will get in the streets and and you can literally watch Mao's Great Leap Forward taking place repurposed today. You can see it. It's crazy. But anyway, well, what I was gonna say is we didn't have, media telling us that we should be divided as much. Like I said, it was there, and we had, it made the news whenever there were whenever there was racial strife. But I remember when I first came to Alabama, that was a big question when I call home on Mother's Day or Christmas, and they'd be like, so how does racism show up? And from what I saw, it was always subtly, and it was in different brands. Like there were old ladies, they're not going to change, and I remember seeing it. I was buying cereal on an aisle one time in a grocery store, and I look over, and there's this little old short white lady, and she's like reached in and parted the cereal boxes. And she's like got the shelf, and she's chinned up into and I thought, I'm a missionary, so my first thought is, oh, I wonder if she can't reach something. So, I kind of inched closer, but I could tell she was talking. And I kind of inched closer, and I just hear her whispering like vile, like the N word, just whispering over and over, just like, mm, mm, mm. And I realized that she's whispering it through the aisle to the next aisle.
Ooh.
It sickened me. Like, I wanted to punch her. I wanted to drop her. But I'll never forget this. I remember, like, as a missionary, one of our brass rings was bring somebody to church, right? So we'd bring people to church all the time, and they'd sit with us, and I'll never forget it, though. We were in church this one time, and we were introducing this black family to everybody, and everybody's shaking hands and saying hi, and the bishop's wife was introducing herself, and I had kind of stepped away, and I was talking to somebody else, but I caught her say to the wife of the family that we brought, "We're so glad you're here. As you can see, there's not a lot of your kind here." I was just like, wow. Yeah. Like, and again, I just wanted to like drop her. Like, it was disgusting.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, and that family never came back.
Nope. Which is understandable.
God, I was just like, and I don't know if you can, that kind of, that level of hate and stupid, you can't, I don't know how you fix that. I don't think
you can't fix ignorance. The person,
and it's the bishop's wife too. I was like, it was gross. Anyway, well, I thought I'd end on that note, since
positivity,
trying to brighten it from rabbit parts and human skin to fixing it with a little bit of Southern charm.
At least we're living up to our name, right? Talk about a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
Of everything.
This was funny. I saw this. So Jordan Bonaparte,
Nighttime podcast, right?
Nighttime podcast. It's been rebranded. But they still do Keep Canada Weird, which is awesome. On Facebook, he posted an apology, or the podcast posted an apology, that there was a hot mic moment where they were like, "We apologize. We realized that during that we missed something in the edit. There was a hot mic moment where the hosts were talking. They thought they weren't being recorded, and they were talking about some celebrity." And I don't even think it was bad. Like, cause they're like, we thought about deleting the episode or removing the episode, but we decided, better to just address our mistake that we had a hot mic moment. And I'm like, that's our entire show.
Yeah.
Like,
we decided to edit all of our weird and, maybe slightly controversial episodes, which means we are taking our entire show off the air.
Deleting the show. Yeah. Well, okay. I was trying to think, can you think of how many episodes have we recorded where I've just said, no, we're not putting it out? It's happened a couple, like maybe 2 or 3,
but we're still like less than 5. And it wasn't even whole episodes. It was just chunks of conversation.
Yeah, it was a chunk. And I've thought a lot about that. I've thought about, us having untimely or timely conversations at the time. I've thought about even 911, like people that listen to 911 calls, there's like a swath of episodes that happened during COVID. And I'm like, what do you do? Because like Jack and I would just kind of yammer on, and people are listening to them now. I've thought about going back and cutting the timely stuff out, but it's hard.
Most of the stuff that we've cut out, right? And it was mostly just because we would get long-winded about something.
Yeah.
Or a little too, just like long-winded about something that's controversial and going a little too hard in the paint. If you understand that.
Yep.
That basketball reference. And so it's like we didn't even cut out everything. We would just kind of trim it up, like trim the long-windedness. So you still got what we were talking about. We just didn't hammer on certain things as hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and we
But no, Sora, we weren't altering history. We were trimming history. We left the meat and potatoes in. We just got rid of the leftovers. Let's put it that way. So the whole, like, it's not like we're cutting out stuff like we're embarrassed to say, because, like, we do that all the time. And if we cut out that stuff, we would cut out everything. But it's mostly just trimming things. Like, oh, here's the meat and potatoes. Here's the idea. But here's where we got a little long-winded in it.
I have a hard time. I struggle. Like, I have a big problem with being obstinately right. Like that's my I feel like I'm always right. And so I'll talk about whatever was on my mind because I feel like I'm right. Which isn't good, unless you're well researched and right, you should maybe tone it down. I will say that one of the big reasons that I don't go back and delete the 911, especially 911 COVID era stuff, is because we were prophetically right. And it's comfortable to say. Like, I would never preface something by saying I'm on the right side of history on this. Like I think that's a dangerous position to posit. But what we said about COVID and everything during the time was, and we were like, oof, maybe we should delete that, but turns out, and that was during a time like, man, we lost people in waves. They were like, you're bigots and you're you're anti-science, and we lost people all over the place. And I wonder where they're at now. Like, I know where they're at. It's kind of fun, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
On that, I'm going to read something.
Please do.
And the reason I'm going to read this is because I just said, it's dangerous to say you're on the right side of history. But I'm going to read something. I saw this the other day. and these are not my words. These are somebody else's words on the internet. How depressing, as we all know, the story began with a law the state and local politicians hated, a federal law, and the local government tolerated it being ignored. But Washington wasn't going to accept that. Laws are laws. So they sent in federal agents to enforce the unpopular law. If you're starting to feel uncomfortable right now while I read this, just take a seat, take a beat, because you think you know. And maybe you do, but... And of course, that didn't go well. Protesters rose up like dandelions after a rain and got directly in the faces of those federal agents. Unfortunately and predictably, there was violence. The state government itself toyed with the idea of calling out the state National Guard to oppose the federal agents. The local politicians, the mayor, the attorney general, and the governor were all Democrats in a very blue state. And that's important. And the governor himself wasn't shy about telling the feds, get out of here, just leave. We want you out. So what did Washington do? Well, they could have meekly retreated, tail between the legs, and let the unpopularity of the law in this particular state and the refusal of the state and local governments to cooperate be the deciding factor. Washington could have adopted that policy. Sure, we can pass federal laws, but if there's too much resistance in a given state or city, we can't really enforce such laws. We certainly don't want to put ourselves at odds with the local police, let alone the state National Guard. So the smarter move is to just not worry about enforcing the law in that particular state. The other states, sure, but not that one. Well, given the personality of the president, that position was unlikely to be chosen, and it wasn't. Washington doubled down and sent in more federal power because the federal government absolutely could not tolerate what was increasingly looking like insurrection. The Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution was very clear. Federal law overrode state law, and federal law had to be enforced equally and everywhere, not just in those states where the local politicians agreed with the law. And that brings us to where we are now. Except now, in the case that I just explained, isn't Minneapolis in 2026. It was Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957, and the president isn't Donald Trump, it's Dwight Eisenhower. And the unpopular law isn't immigration enforcement, it's racial integration of schools. But in pretty much every other respect, the two situations are identical, except we don't know how things are going to end in Minneapolis. But here's what happened in Little Rock. Faced with state and local politicians who refused to integrate their schools and were determined to keep the black kids separated, federal law be damned, Eisenhower invoked the Insurrection Act. He not only federalized the Arkansas National Guard, he also sent in the 101st Airborne, the same division that turned the tide at Normandy. In short, Eisenhower made sure the law was enforced. Local politicians be damned. Because at that point, the issue was less about racial integration than it was about not tolerating a state essentially engaging in rebellion against the U.S. Constitution. The previous time that happened, we had a civil war. And Eisenhower knew something about war. He'd been the supreme Allied commander in Europe and oversaw the Normandy invasion, which ultimately toppled the Nazis and won World War II. A president with that background knew you couldn't allow a state government to engage in insurrection against a federal authority. Sorry, one sec. So, with the famous General Eisenhower himself now using the Army, including the 101st Airborne Division, to enforce the law, the locals eventually backed down. Although it took months, in hindsight, pretty much everyone today agrees that Eisenhower did the right thing. even if a federal law is unpopular, even if it's wildly unpopular, as it was back then. We had a whole swath of the U.S. society that felt like that segregation should be an okay thing in a particular jurisdiction. That doesn't mean you don't enforce the law. You do, even if you have to bring in the army itself, as was needed in Little Rock. And then he goes on to say, I wonder if Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey are even aware of this story, or if they are, how do they feel about essentially following in the footsteps of segregationists? So my add to that would be, like the person that's taking a photo of me in my underwear in the window across from a school and trying to light a news story on fire, the media continues to overlook a very simple thing. There was an initial law broken. And we're all overlooking that. And we're saying families and children and separation and all that. Let me give you a like for like with that. Let's just say that I decide to go and to hop over 2 towns away and start dating a woman, and I end up having kids with that woman, and I'm still me. I'm a good guy, and I know how to treat women and children properly, and I develop a beautiful family 2 towns away. No one would look at that after I got caught and be like, I don't care if you created Rhodes Scholars as children in that town 2 towns away. What you did was despicable. What you did wasn't right. And that's where I land on this. It's like, I understand, like, these aren't bad people. We're not talking about bad people. We're talking about bad choices that end up maybe in fertile ground, as they might in the United States. You come across the border illegally, you're most likely going to be able to develop a beautiful life, and maybe have beautiful children and have a family and maybe contribute to the society. But no one would overlook the violation of my first family and my first wife because I decided to do something that in our society, and when it comes to immigration, is unconstitutional. It's illegal. Don Lemon was trying to make the argument, well, he's like, well, it's not illegal. It's not a crime. It's a misdemeanor. I'm like, that's a crime. It's just not a felony.
So if misdemeanors are okay to do, then just DUI yourself across the country there, bud. DUIs are misdemeanors.
Yeah, I mean,
like a DUI, as long as you don't kill someone, is a misdemeanor, right? And nobody, so that would mean like, so if you don't believe misdemeanors should be enforced, then we should just let people drunk, just get rid of drunk driving. Like, that's not a thing. Just let people do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And drink as much as they want, go driving, do some fentanyl, get in a car, and go have your merry fun times.
I mean, go and look up your local mugshot for your local police department. 95% of the people that were arrested in the last week, misdemeanors, not felonies.
And a lot of them are DUIs.
And they're not bad people. They're people that made a bad choice. And we don't damn the rest of their life, but sometimes you have to be able to extricate the bad choice, and the law isn't satisfied mercifully because you decided to create a beautiful life. Just like that family 2 towns over, I ruined 2 families.
Yeah.
I didn't just, by my poor choice, I ruined 2 families. And the law doesn't go, you know what, we need to give him a pass because he's got a couple Rhodes Scholar kids over there, and his wife over there, she's beautiful and she doesn't deserve this. And what about his first wife? Like, let's just let him continue. Like, let him continue to raise these 2 families. Let's just let him. No. And Eisenhower saw it, and he's like, these things we don't abide. if we want to change that stuff, if we feel as a country that we are on the wrong side of history with what's happening in a place like Minneapolis, that has to be changed in our laws. It's not changed on the streets. And mistakes can happen and we can be enraged. I'm disgusted that people have been killed over all of this.
But like, and I think the thing that I don't like the most is just the what would you even call that? The deflection that goes on in all of it, where it's just like you can't tell someone the truth without them getting mad. So it's just like Obama deported 3 million people.
Yeah.
And
like
even
said,
at the
Tom
rate
Homan,
that Trump's going right now, he's not gonna be able to catch that. Like before he's out of office. So we're getting pissed about something that was 10 times worse under Obama, right? Under a liberal president. Like there was way more deportations. ICE was way more active than they are.
Tom Homan got a medal for it.
But now that there's, like everyone cares all of a sudden, like, and that's the thing that bothers me. It's like, don't care all of a sudden. Like, if you care, that's fine. Like, speak up, say what you want. But it's like, don't get mad at someone for doing the exact same thing that someone you voted for did too. Like, that's where I draw, like, where I'm just like, you know what, I don't like it. But I'm also not going to make a big stink about it because I also supported someone who did that thing.
That's what I'm saying. Is you don't, if you're not willing to look at it objectively and say this is like for like, then you can't have a good conversation, a healthy conversation. And for the argument is still floating out there. They're like, well, they're disappearing citizens, actual citizens. They're getting deported. Every single case. And right now, I'm confident in saying this. I can't say tomorrow there'll be one that I can't get behind. But right now, every case of someone being detained that was a citizen that's made the headline, just go use your whatever AI tool you want to get the down low on it. Go to Grok. Grok's great. Go and say, of all of the citizens, the U.S. citizens that have been detained during the ICE raids, pick a state, pick a city, doesn't matter, have any of them been deported? For one, the answer's no, because you can't deport a citizen. And two, the story is always deeper. Most of the citizens that have been detained because they've been either in a car or in a house or somewhere with illegal aliens, and they refused to cooperate. They were. If you had a burglar in your house and you were aiding and abetting the burglar, you would get detained. You might go to jail. You might not, but all I'm saying is, I mean, some people might not even look at it as a like for like with the racial segregation in the 50s. Mm-hmm. But the tactics that are being used are an exact like for like. You might disagree with the topic. And we can disagree. We can disagree on whether or not you think illegal immigration is actually illegal. Are they committing a crime or not? They are. And that's factual. I'm not worried about saying that on a podcast because it is illegal. Whether or not you think it should be enforced, that's fine. But also, I can have that same opinion about any kind of misdemeanor then. I could be like, well, I don't think petty theft should be enforced like it is. Okay, find a town that treats it differently. California, for example, until recently. Like, that's okay. And I think that should be a freedom. Like, we should be able to move to a town, a locale, a place where laws are meted out in a very familiar ilk. Like, mm-hmm. There are people there. The reason it was on the books for so long in California that it wasn't arrestable offense below $950 was for a reason. Like, it wasn't a mistake. People just believed that. And so they made it a law. And that's okay. Move to a town where you feel the laws line up with your ideology. And that's okay. When those laws violate federal or constitutional statutes, you'll run into problems. And the winner of that will be the federal government. as per 1957, as right now with regard to immigration. Those are my thoughts.
I also
and
think
I'm
that,
okay if you disagree with that.
yeah, I'm also, and like, I'm fine disagreeing with people because it's like, you know, where I grew up in Arizona and Utah, right? So it's like, I don't think people realize how, like, how big of a drug problem there is because of the southern border. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think people know how much, like, how scary those cartels are and can be. Like, they'll kill you for nothing, literally for looking at them the wrong way. Like, I went to high school with a kid who got in a gunfight with 4 MS-13 members. He killed all of them. He was a Marine. Because he looked at them wrong at a bar. Like, he literally looked at some dudes wrong. They didn't like how he looked at them and how he didn't immediately, like, cower away from them because he's a freaking, you know, United States Marine who was deployed multiple times, like combat Marine. And he didn't, like, cower down in front of them, so they followed him home. And they broke into his house to kill him, and they got they you know, took the wrong side of that.
Yeah.
You know, and they three of them, like one dude ended up in the hospital and 3 of them ended up in the ground. And it's just like, and that, like, but that happens all the time. Like you have to be really careful in certain areas in Arizona and stuff because it's just gangland, cartel land, and people don't understand that.
If law doesn't maintain law and order and there's a vacuum, crime will fill the vacuum. That's an inevitability. We don't live in a panacea. I think we are oftentimes attracted by something I would probably call like overly attractive other culture, where it happens in religion too. Like, you know, somebody will be Christian and suddenly they're enamored by every other religion except for Christianity. You know, they're like, Buddhism is beautiful. And, you know, and they'll just go down the list and they'll be like, all these are beautiful except for mine. Mine's icky.
Yeah.
And we do it with cultures too. We're like, oh my goodness, like the Swiss have it right. And oh, socialism can work. And so we get this like beautified view of how things are. And I think we do that with immigration too. We think that the picture in our mind is it's this little Mexican family that is being raided by ICE and we're separating them. And so the argument might be something like, what about amnesty? Like, there's too many. There's too many. This is a problem. But the argument I would make with that is we saw it coming. We saw it for 4 years. We saw the millions come in. We knew this was going to be a problem, and we were allowing something illegal to happen and to take root. The answer is not to just forgive the illegal acts. That our country would go up in flames if we started doing that about other things where illegal acts. What about mass amnesty for DUI accidents, like manslaughter? What about like DUI? It was an accident. He didn't mean to drink that much. What about the list of people that were killed and it's manslaughter because DUI? It's not murder. It's the lowest death sentence, you know, the lowest sentence you could get for killing somebody. Why, like, we're going to ruin a whole life because he had too many to drink and, you know, he caused a thing. He's got a family. He's got a life. Why would we ruin? Like, start going down the list. Start with the most soft crimes you can think of and go down the list and try to make your argument for removing the punishment from those. But try to not make it look silly. And you'll really struggle. Like, and you won't get a lot of people behind you because you can't make the argument, yeah, but they have a family. Yeah, but they have a family. Well, yeah, but he broke the law. You can't just forgive the illegal act. And mass amnesty is not an answer because if you think, if for example, if you think that the economy is better because we have the illegal immigrants here, you haven't looked at the statistics of the imposition on our welfare state. and the numbers of the people that are immigrants to the country, where they are not contributing, they are consuming. And then people make the argument, well, this country was founded on immigrants. No, it was founded on settlers. It was founded on people that came here and worked hard to pull something out of the ground. Mm-hmm. We have millions of people that are here that are drawing from our welfare system. They are not contributing. And there are numbers. You can go find the numbers of every immigrant nation and the percentage of those people that are drawing from our welfare system. And it's huge. Starts in the 80% and goes down from there. And again, like if the only picture you're staring at is this adorable brown family, because everybody that criticizes thinks we're just going after brown people. If the picture you have is this brown family that is being torn apart, then there's not a lot to talk about. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot to talk about because you're willing to forgive illegal acts because beauty has come from it. Beauty came from me hopping 2 towns over and creating another family. But no one is dumb enough to say Sam shouldn't be held accountable for his acts just because I created beauty out of that. You know what I mean? Our country can't stand if we don't act lawfully. And I don't know. I know that's divisive, but I'll probably keep it in because 5 years from now, you'll be talking about, I don't know, the racism on Mount Etna, and this will be a thing in the past, and nobody will want to talk about it. We'll be like, well, oh, you're still stuck on that? Move on.
Yeah. But I also think that if you're watching any media at all, you're getting the cherry-picked everything, right?
Yes.
So
Pick
it's
a
like,
side, doesn't matter.
They'll show like a small family getting deported, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is what we're doing. And then they won't show you the 10, cartel members who were also deported on the same,
or the ones where
they're same swoop.
They're getting in the way of ICE, and they don't even know it. Police raids on pedophiles, on sex traffickers.
Yeah.
And it's not even ICE related, but the protesters are out there honking their horns and blowing their whistles, and the sting is a pedophile takedown.
I know it's happened in Oregon. They're people just driving dark colored SUVs are getting harassed because people are like, it's ICE, and so they're getting followed. This one dude, he's literally a news reporter, right? Like he works for the news station, driving a news van full of camera equipment, and people were running him off the road and saying that they're stopping ICE. And he's like, I'm literally here to report on what's happening. And he's like, I'm a reporter. Here are my credentials. And people are still like, no, he's fake. He's just pretending to, like, there's literally videos of this dude just like going, hey, I'll leave. Like because people are threatening to kill him because they think he's with ICE. And he's literally showing his credentials, like going, this is camera equipment. Look, it has the news station name spray painted on the cases, like on the travel cases. And people are just like, nope, you're with ICE. You're just pretending to be a reporter, but you're really just trying to arrest people. And he's just like, okay, I'm leaving. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, it's almost, you see the look in his eyes, like, I don't get paid enough for this bullshit. And so he drives away. And so and that's been happening all over the place. People in dark SUVs are being driven off the road because apparently they're trying to
well, the suspicion is so high. The suspicion is so high. You see a caravan of even unmarked anymore, and I get it. It's, the thing is, and I really mean this. Like I feel it's unfair. We have a mic. We put this show out. It's our opinions, and I'm very quick to say, the show shares our opinions. The show I had somebody the other day that was like, stop. You're cutting, you're hurting half of your audience, and I'm like, I've never not been consistent. I've always been conservative leaning. I've always said what aligns with my moral compass. I've never diverted. And the irony of someone saying stop, the answer should be, whatever your belief, if you disagree with me, I respect the fact that you're out there voicing your opinion. That's what makes this country work, is that we do these things. My argument would be, if you're serious about your opinion and it's different than mine, then I'm 100% behind you finding ways to change the laws. Like, I'll show up, you show up, and we make our arguments, and we'll get some law. Let's adjust some laws. I think H-1B visa is a nightmare. I think the naturalization process and the immigration process into this country is abhorrent. Those things should be changed. We should be speeding up the process for immigration to happen. Like, I am 100% behind that. But if you take away the topic and you overlay 1957 and you overlay Minneapolis right now, and you take away the topic, because I'm not about to say, well, whose side would you be on if you were, where you're at right now, but it was 1950. No, that's a terrible way to align this. It would be terrible to say, well, you'd be a racist in 1950s. No, what I'm saying is the process that's happening between the governments, the federal government and state governments fighting. The winner will be the federal government, because they're aligned with the constitutional processes that play out. This has happened time and time again throughout our history in 200 plus years, that when a state goes awry, regardless of the topic, the federal government is the corrective force. And topic by topic, we may hate it. And I'm not about to line up somebody and say, well, you'd be a racist in 1950. What I'm saying is the process that's playing out is legal. In that process, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things that happen, and people should be held to account for those things. If someone is shot and that was an illegal act, they should be held accountable for that.
Yeah.
But and on top of that, fix the immigration policies, fix the H-1B visa problems and everything. We get, the media and politicians want us to just be mad. And I love Liz in the back door. She said, I disagree, but I love you. And I love Liz because we can disagree about this stuff, but there are ways that we can find common ground. There are ways that we can fix laws we don't like, but the map of how it went in 57 and the map of how it's going right now, they're like for like, and they will play out the same way, regardless of the topic.
And not that it matters, but for those people who think that, there's some people that think, well, you don't have any blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm a first generation American citizen.
Oh yeah.
On my mom's side.
From Canada.
From my whole, my mom's entire side of the family. Hi, I'm the first American citizen in her entire family. And I've watched my mom go through the naturalization process. My mom is now an American citizen. She went and paid all the monies, a lot of frickin' money. She took all the tests, went and had the interview, went and swore in front of everything. And she said one of the coolest things was seeing all the people there and how emotional some people were getting, while they were swearing in, right, as a citizen of the United States. And it's just and it's not just my mom. My dad's brother's wife, so my aunt, she's from Mexico. A lot of my cousins are half Mexican. I have another aunt from the Philippines. I have cousins from Africa. I have all sorts of just family that are all, immigrants to this country. And it's just there's just, I don't know, so I'm not just some random person who's America, blah, blah, blah. It's I've seen it. I've literally watched immigration happen. My mom had a green card for a long time. And she had to make sure that, it was up to date and everything was good. And going over the border, there's sometimes where they threaten to take my little brother away because he was born in Canada. And it's there's times where Canada was going to hold him at the border.
Yeah.
While we're literally traveling to see family and we're trying to go home.
So the media would have looked at that as the government trying to separate a family.
Yeah. And Canada was
no thing out of it.
Canada's nope, we're keeping him here because he's not a U.S. citizen. And then my mom has to go, his dad is a U.S. citizen. Yeah. He is automatically a U.S. citizen because of that. My dad was born U.S. citizen. And so having fights at immigration, literally parents yelling at immigration officers who are trying to keep my little brother in Canada, keep a 7-year-old in Canada. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I've seen that. I've literally lived through that stuff. But there are right ways to do things, and there are not right ways to do things. And, maybe it's not a good thing, but I'm a habitual rule follower. And so, it just irks
procedures
me.
get messy, right? I mean, you can't fault some border guy because he's like, as I see it right now, your son is a Canadian citizen. We're not letting him in, him go.
And he doesn't have a Canadian passport.
Yeah. So procedure. So he's doing something until there's more information. And then more information comes and he's like, oh, okay. So I would assume that your brother got out.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like the headlines about U.S. citizens being detained. Well, there's more to the story. Just also let a story simmer for a bit. That's, if there's one thing about all this, it's like, just take a beat and let things just decide. I am like you. I just love the law. I love a peaceable, law-abiding society.
So you and me were that kid who, when we came up trick-or-treating on a house that left a bowl out that said take 2, you and me were the kids who took 2.
Yeah, I was.
And then walked away.
Yeah. And every time there's a new headline, like my brain does something that I'm kind of proud of. Like ICE officer shoots protester. My brain says, I hope that was legal. If it wasn't, I hope they nail him to the wall.
Yeah.
But I also don't start posting about it right now because it just happened. Mm-hmm. And as is the case with every single shooting that's happened in Minnesota, it took days before there were multiple angles of the video to come out. Multiple people were recording, but it took days for those things to matriculate. And so that's one great thing about our era is there's bound to be multiple video angles of things anymore, from Charlie Kirk to the latest shooting at an ICE protest. Give it a minute, and then let's all reason together when things happen. And we might still hate the policies. We might still hate
and
that there isn't enough amnesty. We might still all hate the fact that the immigration process is slow. But on a case-by-case basis, we can damn the right side together based on how the law unfolds.
Well, and another thing that bothers me is just blanket statements in general, where it's just like, there have been stupid things going on with ICE, but it's like, there are still ICE agents who are literally doing their job. They're following the law, right? They're doing everything that the law says they're allowed to do, and they're literally doing their job. They're getting a paycheck, and they're going home and buying food and clothes for their kids, right? And they're just trying to get by, and they're just doing the job that they tripped and fell into maybe, and they're following all the laws, but I don't like this whole, every single ICE agent is doing illegal things. It's it's not true.
We do that, don't we, though?
Yeah, it's just
every
every
Democrat is evil. Every Republican is evil.
Every Republican's stupid and uneducated.
If you voted for X, then you are as bad as Y. We have a tendency to do that. And I think that's a sign. That's a sign that our emotions have taken over our our ability to think pragmatically.
Just like Angie in the back door said, just like police, every cop isn't a piece of shit. I personally know cops who are amazing. Your friend,
I know cops that are pieces of shit.
And I also know cops who are giant pieces of giant shit.
Yeah. But again, we have a tendency to look at power and be critical of it. And I think we should. I think we should always be critical of where power coagulates, because that is our job as citizens, is to look at that and correct course when we see that absolute power is corrupting absolutely.
Because, I guarantee you there are ICE agents who wake up every morning saying, I'm going to go get those gang members, right? And that's...
Or the sex traffickers.
I'm going to get these sex traffickers. I'm going to make it safer for my kids. I'm going to make it safer for the neighborhood. I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to, work against those people who are in our country who are trying to just, do bad things, exploit it, steal, all that stuff. There's literally guys out there waking up every morning who have that need, that sense of justice, that go, I want to help make this country better. Then there are the people who are just like, I'm just going to be an asshole today. And they both wear the same badge.
Yeah.
And they might show up to the same station in the day. But it's like, you can't just lump everyone in together. You can't just say every single immigrant here is a good person who is their only crime is crossing the border illegally. Like you can't say that. Like that's not, and that's where I get frustrated. And you can tell, like, you can probably hear it in my voice. Like it's just, that's where I get frustrated with things is blanket statements, everything, or everything's either 100% or it's 0%. Everything's black or it's white. And it's just like, no, that's not how this world works.
On both sides of it. There are beautiful brown families in framed photos that are being torn apart from this.
Yeah.
There are also a lot of sex traffickers and criminals, and also, you know the name of the ICE agent that was involved. Remember the 5-year-old that was, the headline was that he was arrested because by ICE, the 5-year-old was arrested,
and it's his dad.
His dad. You know the name of the ICE agent that was part of that? Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah.
Imagine being an ICE agent who is on that raid. They find the dad. The dad pieces out and leaves his 5-year-old behind. You're the ICE agent that takes the 5-year-old into your care, plays his favorite music in the car, takes him into McDonald's, buys him toys, and is there with that kid the whole time. And you don't have a voice.
And you're the monster.
That. Imagine being the guy that wakes up the next morning knowing that your heart's full because you are full and broken because you're with this 5-year-old all day long, and you wake up to headlines that say that you arrested a 5-year-old and you don't have a voice, and you go to your superiors and you're like, somebody needs to say something right now. And they're like, shut up, get in the van. We have another raid. Like, imagine how jaded you'd get. Imagine how demoralized you'd be. And maybe sitting in that van going to the next raid going, are we on the right side of this? And you'd have to remember that you're following the law. And when you were part of that 5-year-old sitch, you know what you did. And you know that you were honorable. And then I can't even imagine being one of the ICE officers that was on top of that guy that got shot. Like, you'd be waking up the next morning going, that was a mess. That was a mess. That was a mess.
And it's like for every, 10,000 interactions with ICE that are happening across the country in this month, and you can only point out 10 that are horrible. Like, what are the percentages of that? When it's like 0.001, it's like, guess what? When you go get your coffee, there's probably a barista that's really happy to be there and is enjoying their job and making delicious coffee for you. And standing right next to him is someone who would spit in your coffee for any reason at all. And they probably do. And they probably think it's funny. And they hate their job and they wish that they didn't have to be there. Like, that's like, you need to apply that across every job ever. Just like we've tried to beat into people. Like, the freaking governor of your state is someone's next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Right? Could be your next door neighbor, and there's just a normal dude. Guess what? Normal people, there's good people and there's bad people. And there's people who are in the middle, and that's how freaking everything works. There's good people and there's bad people.
I think there are a lot of sides to this, and I'm not about to criticize anybody's view on or their opinion or the feeling that they have, because there are 10 ways to look at the 5-year-old situation. And I think we all have the right to walk through this on our own and kind of come to our own. What I can tell you is that the government in Minnesota is on the wrong side of history. They are, because you regardless of the topic, you can look at the way a government operates and look at historical accounts of the same operating governments doing the same things and go, okay, regardless of the situation, is it legal and lawful what immigration is doing or what the federal government is doing? If the answer is yes, then that state government is on the wrong side of history, and that should at least inform the next step in your education and understanding. And maybe you still come to the conclusion that you're like, immigrants that are here illegally should be given amnesty, and that's fine to have that opinion. I agree with the fact that we are massively blessed by the immigrant population in this country. Silicon Valley would literally be a ghost town without immigrants, without people that weren't citizens that are here. I mean, there are massive contributions and there are a lot of things to change. I think we should temper our views of government involvement in things, and we should look to history and say, okay, regardless of the sitch, regardless of the topic, what they're doing legal and constitutional? If the answer is yes, then you've got other topics to address.
My brain sometimes doesn't shut off, and I was thinking about it. I was like, what would happen if the same things were happening in, let's say, like 1400s England? Okay, someone from out of town walks in. Everyone's going to be like, get out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like they're going to be like, you're probably a spy. You're probably here to do something nefarious. Get out. That's how we lived for thousands of years, right? You're a new person in town. Get out. We don't want you here. But now it's just like, it's weird how time changes things. And now it's like, oh, that stranger who I don't know and have never even met, they're probably a good person. Let's keep them here.
Well, I think the big problem with it is when you don't have any rigor around who you're letting into your country. And me just saying that sounds discriminatory. Every country is discriminatory in who they let into their country unless they have an open border. Look at the process and application for immigrants into a country. The legal process, it meets a certain level of rigor. You can't just answer no comment, I don't know, vague answer here, and be admitted into a country. They won't let you in.
Yeah.
And so when you start looking at it and saying, if you're not doing that, and I agree, our immigration admittance has a lot of overhaul that could be done. When you let people in, one of the major problems you have is that the pendulum has been pulled back so far and everybody's let in that at some point, and we're already seeing this with other governments, is they're saying, we're done, they're all going. And so the pendulum shifts too far the other way. And then you get this massive reflex in the government that's like, we're seeing it in other countries. We just, at the World Economic Forum, there were leaders of countries that stood up and they were like, we're done. They're all getting deported. Yeah. And to me, that is a pendulum shift too far. It's a reaction to the pendulum first going too far one way and not a lot of attention. Anyway, we could talk about this forever, and it is a bit of an echo chamber, but I love everybody that listens, and whether you agree with us or not, I love that you have opinions and that we can live in a country where we're free to discuss these things, that I can say it on a mic and that you can say it on a mic, and that the government doesn't show up to our house, which sounds crazy, but north of us it's happening, and in the UK it's happening. And we're still, maybe a last bastion almost, that we have that freedom here. But we, the people, get to determine when are we acting constitutionally, when are we not, and what do we not like, and what could we adjust? Like, is there stuff from our past that's collected dust and we should change it? We can do that. That's beautiful. That's amazing. And in the middle of all that, we've got a bunch of people that want us to be mad at each other, and it's just not gonna work.
Yeah.
Skin, rabbits, a major tirade on immigration. Wow, this is stacking up to be an episode that we should never release, but maybe
nice callback. I like that callback.
Maybe we'll still let it go.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, that's all we got. That was way more than we got. It's more than you ever wanted, and if you're listening to my voice right now, something is probably wrong with you, but we are so in love with you that you're still here. So thanks for being here. And until Thursday, when we'll bring more music. Soup,
I better bring a good one, apparently.
I'm bringing a banger. I got a challenge for you. I'll challenge both of us.
I'll bring something that's not emo.
Okay, and I'll bring something that is the most outlier in my repertoire. Like I'll bring something where I'm like, I don't think people are going to like this, but I'm going to share it anyway. Okay. All right. Soupity soup, everybody.
Bye.
That was really loud. It was annoying. Just kidding. Soup, bye. Bye.
So soup, let's start the show.